Doesn't matter if you're a bat or a dinosaur, or if you don't even have feet, you can always wear the old Swiftfoot boots, and we're talking equipment and Commander, buddy. A little bit of history. Equipment made its first appearance all the way back in Mirrodin, all the way back in 2003. That was 20 years ago, dude. Some of you were literal babies back then. Some of us, myself included, still are. When I first started brewing, the archetype was pretty intimidating. All the best equipment were pretty expensive, and the best tutors were also just wildly expensive. Since then though, equipment has landed pretty solidly in Boros colors, and there have been a series of really viable commanders, but also some sweet legends within the Grixis shard as well. Dimir, Izzet. Each set gives us a few more, and there are currently 417 cards with these subtype equipment. The archetype is kind of opened up, so let's talk about it a little bit. But first, take up your Loxodon Warhammer and literally smash the like and subscribe buttons to bits. Drop a comment with your favorite equipment, buddy. And also just keep in mind here, listen, I'm not going to go through every possible equipment commander. I'm not going to go through every possible equipment enabler. And I'm also not going to go over every possible equipment. There's just not enough time, dude. At some point, I got to eat food. I got to get out there on the streets and make some moves. Now, one of the very first Boros equipment cards that caught my eye way back when was the Sunforger. 3 generic mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +4/+0, pretty beefy. Has red and white unattached Sunforger. Search your library for a red or white instant card with mana value 4 or less and cast that card without paying its mana cost, then shuffle. Has equipped for 3. So you're cheating the equip cost, which you should be. You're paying the 3 and a red and a white to go tutor up a white instant or red instant and cast it. That's a clunky way of doing things, but the rate is really not that bad. If you go get a 3 mana instant, you're basically getting an instant tutor effect and getting exactly what you need anytime you want. We used to include what was known as Sunforger packages. We would get a card like Anguished Unmaking to clear threats, or you can use this defensively, go get Teferi's Protection. Entire commander decks can be built around this little equipment. Building around Sunforger is one of the joys of life, brother. I do have one little aside though, the art is super goofy. Who is that goober over there throwing the hammer? What's up with the hat? That needs an update 1000%. Alright, so if you build around one impactful piece of equipment, say like Sunforger, there's a bunch of other ones that I'll go into a little later. How the heck are you going to tutor out your tutor? Remember, there are artifact tutors in a variety of colors, so if you're in red, you can go get artifacts that way. If you're in blue, there's a ton of artifact tutors, but we're concentrating on equipment today. So we got Steel Shaper's Gift, 1 white mana for a sorcery. Search your library for an equipment card, reveal that card, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Oh my god, dude, what a gift. But this thing's 16 bucks. Then we got Open the Armory, 1 and a white for a sorcery. Search your library for an aura or equipment card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. What a difference 1 mana makes, I guess. Look at this hunk over here dropping clips. This is under $1 and is a fantastic equipment tutor. Now, as far as I can tell, there are 16 total cards that go fetch equipment specifically, with varying degrees of efficiency. As you can see, 1 mana makes all the difference. I mean, this is a game of numbers after all. The poster child for equipment tutors on a stick is the Stoneforge Mystic, 1 and a white for a creature, core artificer, it's a 1/2. When Stoneforge Mystic enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. As 1 and a white tap, you may put an equipment card from your hand onto the battlefield. This card is why equipment decks get so crazy expensive. People think cards like this are auto-includes. Well, this is certainly good, and it's an auto-include if you have it. But check out this next big fella. I love this guy's armor. He wants to be a mutant ninja turtle. Stonehewer Giant is 3 white for a creature giant warrior. It's a 4/4 with vigilance. Has 1 and a white tap. Search your library for an equipment card, put it onto the battlefield. Attach it to a creature you control, then shuffle. If this thing stays out there, your opponents are going to be in trouble. Fetching some monster equipment, cheating the equip cost can be really powerful. You can do all kinds of little tricks with it. This big guy is only about $4 due to a recent reprint. I love how unhinged the Tajnar Swordsmith looks. 3 and a white for a creature cat soldier, it's a 2/3. When this guy enters the battlefield, you may pay X. If you do, search your library for an equipment card with mana value X or less, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Certainly not as efficient as a Stoneforge Mystic, but we're down in the 20-cent territory. If you just want a skull clamp or something, if that's the key part of your strategy, or some other relatively cheap equipment, this guy takes the cake. How about another sweet 2 mana tutor? You got Fighter Class, 1 and a white for an enchantment. When Fighter Class enters the battlefield, search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Level 2 is 1 red and a white, and equip abilities you activate cost 2 less to activate. This is a $4 card, kind of sneaks into equipment decks. I hadn't even seen this one until I started digging through Scryfall. These class enchantments can be paid on an installment plan, and second level is pretty decent for equipment decks, which is gravy on top of it being a 2-mana tutor. So blue in particular, and outside Boros colors in general, we've been getting a little more support. We have an emerging archetype for the blue equipment decks, some sweet commanders which we'll touch on later, but we have Anchor to Reality, 2 blue for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature, search your library for an equipment or vehicle card, put that card onto the battlefield, and shuffle. If it has mana value less than the sacrifice permanent's mana value, scry 2. The art on this thing, I don't know, it's a little suspect, but it tutors directly onto the battlefield. It's a more broad tutor than some of the white equipment tutors, but you're paying for that versatility. You got Deadeye Quartermaster out there, 3 and a blue for a creature, human pirate, it's a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment or vehicle card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. I mean, look at this pirate lady out there. It's evocative. You know, she's tossing sabers out for you and your buddies as you come aboard. Come aboard for adventure, my friends. Oh my god, look at Aslan from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Nazan, revered bladesmith. He's a bradesmith too, dude. Check out his braids. He's 4 green and white for a legendary creature, cat, artificer. It's 5/4. When Nazan, revered bladesmith, enters the battlefield, search your library for an equipment card, reveal it. If you reveal a card named Hammer of Nazan this way, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put that card in your hand, then shuffle. Whenever a equipped creature you control attacks, you may tap target creature defending player controls. I always thought this was a cool card. It's got a nice little equipment tutor effect. This guy's making things happen out there. Don't overlook that second ability if you're building in these colors. And this guy dovetails nicely into ways to cheat equip costs. And let's start with the Hammer of the Man himself. It's 4 generic mana for a legendary artifact equipment. Whenever Hammer of Nazan or another equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach that equipment to target creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has indestructible, has equipped for 4. I thought this whole art was the hammer, like a big old Thor's hammer, you know, but it's a hammer sitting on top of an anvil, I think. Anyways, this is a powerhouse. I have 2 of these for some reason. I think I got one in the collection. It's a great tutor target, but it's also 20 bucks. Then you got Sigarda's Aid, 1 white mana for an enchantment. You may cast aura and equipment spells as though they had flash. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may attach it to target creature you control. Look at Sigarda out there. This poor little guy, his legs are broken, his buddies are all dead. I mean, really, he's just saying to her, it's like, please, I need health care. But she's like, here, dude, take this hammer. And there are some creatures that help you equip equipment to your bigger creatures, like this little fella. Brass Squire's 3 generic mana for an artifact creature mirror, it's a 1/3. Tap, attach target equipment you control to target creature you control. And then we got the Auriok Windwalker, 3 and a white for a creature human wizard, it's a 2/3 with flying. Has tap, attach target equipment you control to target creature you control. Very similar card, but slightly more mana than the Brass Squire. This is great for budget equipment decks. You have to weigh whether it's just better to put the investment into paying equip costs or if you're running very high cost equipments. You get some weird little instants like Fumble, 1 and a blue for an instant, return target creature to its owner's hand. Gain control of all auras and equipment that were attached to it, then attach them to another creature. This guy's getting fumbled, dude. He's out there on the 1 yard line. Fumble it up. You can do this in response to targeted removal on your own creature if you want to. Just plop it onto an alternate commander, all your little equipments. Similar card, Magnetic Theft. 1 red mana for an instant. Attach target equipment to target creature. So this is at instant speed. Fantastic for surprises. If you got equipment just sitting out there, you don't have enough to pay the equip costs, your commander swinging in, oh man, all of a sudden you got that hammer or whatever the heck it is attached to your commander and they're swinging in for more damage. You don't have to worry about your opponents running equipment because you are. But if they are running equipment, you can just steal that nonsense. Speaking of stealing that nonsense, I gotta get a plug-in for my Thieving Skydiver, my #1 best girl. 1 in a blue for a creature merfolk rogue, it's a 2/1 with kicker X. X can't be 0, brother, don't even try to do it. Has flying. When Thieving Skydiver enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gain control of target artifact with mana value X or less. If that artifact is an equipment, attach it to Thieving Skydiver. I don't know, man, maybe I'm crazy, but in a game of Commander with 4 players, is no one running artifacts that you want to steal? That's insane. There are at least 4 soul rings out there for you to go get. This card does so much. The list of things I stolen with this, alright, here we go. Soul Ring 54 times, then Skull Clamp, some Arcane Signets. Come on, man. Right, so your commander's out there, ready to swing in for 29,000 commander damage. It's all suited up. It's got 3 swords, it's got a hammer, it's got some boots, an atomic sledge, got a helmet on. Oh no, here we go. Well, you gotta have a plan B, buddy. And there are some excellent alternate commanders that can just suck up all your equipments when your commander inevitably gets swords to plowshared. You got our Den, Intrepid Archaeologist, 2 and a white for a legendary creature, Core Scout. It's a 2/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may attach any number of auras and equipment you control to target permanent or player. It has partner. Look at this guy, he's climbing the sky boulders. He's doing a great job, he's just a hunk up there. Then you have Armory Automaton, 3 generic mana for an artifact creature construct. It's a 2/2. Whenever this guy enters the battlefield or attacks, you may attach any number of target equipment to it. Similar card, this guy's a real menace. He's got 4 arms like Goro from Mortal Kombat, and he's not afraid to use them. Uh-oh, here he comes. Balin, Wandering Knight, 2 white for a legendary creature, Cat Knight. It's a 3/3 with first strike. Balin, Wandering Knight has double strike as long as 2 or more equipment are attached to it. As 1 and a white, attach all equipment you control to Balin. Well, if you don't like the perfectly spherical Balin, you can go out and get yourself the anime waifu version. In white, this is a fantastic threat that can get native double strike for lots of shenanigans. Look at this one, Heavenly Blademaster, 5 and a white for a creature angel. It's a 3/6 with flying and double strike. When it enters the battlefield, you may attach any number of auras and equipment you control to it. It's great with haste enablers. Other creatures you control get +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to Heavenly Blademaster. Looks like Katy Perry a little bit. Anyways, this is not an exhaustive list, but you want to include other impactful creatures when you're carrying your swords, buddy. You want your commander out there, but you don't want him flying solo. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty give us some equipment creatures, something new and interesting, exciting. I was probably more interested than most people. Parsing through the rules is really fun for me, but let's take a look at Lizard Blades. 1 and a red for an artifact creature, Equipment Lizard. It's a 1/1 with double strike. Equipped creature has double strike, has reconfigure for 2. The reconfigure text is attached to target creature you control or unattached from a creature. Reconfigure only as a sorcery. While attached, this is not a creature. I'm a fan of this guy. First off, it has double strike, so if this is all you have left with a bunch of equipments after a board wipe, if it's attached during the board wipe, it's not a creature, so it sticks around and falls off. You can slap your equipment on this thing and go to town. These cards are interesting because they don't have an equip ability per se, rather they have the reconfigure ability. So a card like Leonin Shikari, 1 and a white for a creature cat soldier, it's a 2/2. You may activate equip abilities anytime you can cast an instant. This card does not help Lizard Blades at all. But how about Danitha, Benalia's Hope, 4 and a white for legendary creature Human Knight, it's a 4/4. First strike, Vigilance, Lifelink. When Danitha, Benalia's Hope enters the battlefield, you may put an aura or equipment card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield attached to Danitha. Does this work? Well, is Lizard Blades an equipment card? Yeah, dude. Can it be attached? Yeah, of course. You kind of have to take these things on a case-by-case basis and read your cards very carefully. But this segues us nicely into fantastic equipment commanders. Here we got Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale, 3 red, white, and a black for a legendary creature, Human Knight. It's a 5/5 with Vigilance and Menace. Whenever an equipped creature you control attacks, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Equipment you control have equipped Knight 0. I mean, Sir Gwyn kind of shows you with her art that she wants to run a flaming sword. You know what I mean? This is all about equipment. So does this work with Lizard Blades? Yeah, it's an equipment. Gwyn gives the equipment that ability. I have a Sir Gwyn deck, it rocks. The addition of black gives us access to all sorts of sweet removal and Orzhov colors, advantageous board wipes, and all the Boros goodies as well. You got card draw stapled on just for giggles. This card's A1. What is this lady looking at in the distance? You got Galea, Kindler of Hope, 1 green, white, and a blue for a legendary creature, Elf Knight. It's a 4/4 with Vigilance. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast aura and equipment spells from the top of your library. When you cast an equipment spell this way, it gains when this equipment enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. This can be built pretty cheaply in banned colors, has access to aura support if you want to go that direction. It's a solid card advantage engine. Galea is a little cheaper than Gwyn mana-wise, but this thing can be a lot of fun. And we got Dalakos, Crafter of Wonders, 1 blue and a red for a legendary creature, Merfolk Artificer. It's a 2/4. Has tap, add colorless. Spend this mana only to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. Equipped creatures you control have flying and haste. Dalakos is kind of a strange bird. Is it equipment? Takes some creativity, but thankfully blue is a very versatile color. We have a mana dork, albeit a restricted mana dork in the command zone, incredibly powerful. So take for example a card like Blade of Shared Souls, 2 and a blue for an artifact equipment. It has the 4 mirrored in, so it enters the battlefield. You create a little 2/2 red rebel creature token, then attach this to it. So whenever this becomes attached to a creature, for as long as it remains attached to it, you may have that creature become a copy of another target creature you control. So this little guy, this little Mirrodin guy that you're making, Whatever it becomes, it also has flying and haste if it's in a Dalikos deck. The same is true of living weapon cards. Look at this thing, the old Scythe Claw. 5 generic mana for an artifact equipment, or as I call it, Scythe Claw. Has a living weapon, so you create a little germ, attach it to it. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. Has equipped for 3. These are very hard to block. All these hasty flying equipment's like, oops, half your life's gone, buddy. Plug in this card, but I really like Alila, Artful Provocateur. 1 white, blue, and a black for a legendary creature. Fairy Warlock. It's a 2/3 with flying, death touch, and lifelink. Other creatures you control with flying get +1/+0. Whenever you cast an artifact or enchantment spell, create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with flying. Alila makes these little evasive creatures that are just a giant nuisance. The mild anthem for flying creatures makes this pretty rad and difficult to deal with. You can include all these flying creatures that can suck equipment onto themselves. Alila is a great commander. It's pretty broad. Look at this fine gentleman. He's going to come up and slice your ham sandwich in half for you at the deli. Tetsuo Imperial Champion is a blue, a black, and a red for a legendary creature, Human Samurai. It's a 3/3. Whenever he attacks, if it's equipped, choose 1. Tetsuo deals damage equal to the highest mana value among equipment attached to it to any target. You may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the highest mana value among equipment attached to Tetsuo without paying its mana cost. This thing is utterly perplexing, but it's super rewarding if you can build it right. Grixis is a challenging color to build into, even more so because it lacks non-artifact ramp, but this guy can turn Grixis Spellslinger into an equipment deck. Very cool card. Anyways, folks, that's my time. I do want to do a video on equipment in the near future, just talking about some of the budget pickups, some of the more expensive options, but I don't have time for that right now. I need to go bake some cookies and get a pot roast going, man. Snicky G from Better Commander, signing off.